When you look at Nigeria's democracy today since 1999, you realize that several entities have shaped where we have been for almost 3 decades. These entities include political parties. Of course, we have seen these parties evolve from one phase to another with their numbers, either reducing at one point or increasing at another. In 2023, for example, we realized that quite a number of parties had thrown their hat in the ring, in the manner of speaking, as far as those elections were concerned. In 2027, there's also the projection that there is the likelihood more political parties will also vie for office. But in the midst of all this, there have been question marks as to how political parties in Nigeria, even though this is a country that prides itself in practicing democracy, conduct themselves, whether from the legal standpoint or from the standpoint of the socio-political implications of their conduct. It has remained a very focal discussion how the conduct of political parties, if you like, impacts one way or another the democratic process that was put in place in Nigeria in 1999. As it stands today, there are people who say that we probably need fewer parties in our polity. Others say the real problem are the mainstream political parties, and in this regard, the female parties like the People's Democratic Party, which, by the way, is seriously embattled right now. They also point towards the All Progressives Congress, the ruling APC, as well as the Labour Party, for example, where there has been so much of internal wrangling. In any case, if political parties need to be deregistered, how cumbersome will that process be, and what price will Nigerians have to pay politically? That's the fulcrum of our discussion on Scale of Justice this week. I'm Uyi Agmofwegbe. As always, I'd like to say a big thank you to you for joining us. We'll put the discussion on the road after this break. Please stay with us. Incidentally, my guest of the program this week has a layer of specializations. First, he is a lawyer. Second, he is the executive director at the Fiscal and Civil Rights Enlightenment Foundation, and someone again who is a politician, deeply persuaded that at some point in time, himself and his likes will redefine for the better the political landscape of Nigeria. In the meantime, we'll be looking squarely at the conduct of political parties from purely a legal standpoint. Barrister Idris Waziri, I'd like to say a big thank you to you for coming.
Thank you for having me once again.
Great. So when someone takes their time to look at the things you do, I mean, how you, if you like, carry on as a politician, it will appear your variant or variation of politics is alien. I mean, your approach, your ideology, your thinking, and even some recommendations that, I mean, you have made on some of our programs, for example. The recent one being your call, which appears very serious as it stands right now, for certain political parties to be deregistered. Can you provide basis from a legal standpoint? Okay,
so all I'm asking for is equality, right?
For whom? For political parties?
For everybody that's contesting in 2027, okay? Everybody that has contested before since in 2020. So the 74 parties were deregistered in 2020 after the 2019 elections, right? So in 2023, parties that should or were deregistered and some parties were allowed to stay in 2023, primarily APC and PDP, right? And the violations that got some parties deregistered, you did not win a seat in the election, right? That was the flimsy excuse being used to deregister parties. Okay, the big boys, PDP, APC, they won seats, but they committed the bigger crime of violating the sections of our constitution, right? Which as political parties, as organs of government, individuals or agencies, you are mandated to conform to, apply and observe the provisions of Chapter 2. Once you fail to do that, then all we are asking INEC to do is show parity, deregister these two parties. No matter how big they are, no matter how powerful they seem to be, follow the letter of the law. You set the precedent, you have the law, you have the backing of the law, you have the backing of the Supreme Court in what you have done. All we are asking at the Fiscal and Civic Rights Enlightenment Foundation is show equality, deregister this party so that we enter 2023 with a fresh slate. Okay, it's not enough that we're asking the parties to be deregistered. No, the principal actors that violated our constitution, we should at least give them a little ban. I'm not asking for anybody to be sent to prison or anything like that, but at least ban them from our policy.
From participating?
From participating. You cannot injure us that much and then expect there will be no repercussions to
it. Sounds like this will start with the president.
Absolutely. I'm not picking individuals. I'm simply saying the parties, APC, PDP, anybody that held executive positions as president, vice president, governor, deputy, anybody that was DG of an organization that was in charge of privatization, that's BPE and NCP, National Council on Privatization.
Right.
These individuals, because you held executive positions, in a position to reverse or give credits to the Privatization Act, those are the people that were saying, no, you need to be banned from our political space for at least a period where we can now breathe and try new actors, because this is not only a failure, it is a violation of our constitution.
Okay, so like I said at the top of this conversation, this looks, a bit unconventional. Don't you think this is an unrealistic, maybe a tall order right now?
The insurmountable task ahead of someone should never be the reason to not do something, right? Whether something is daunting, whether something has repercussions, for example, they might threaten your life, whatever. These are never reasons to back down from something. You always do something because it's right. It's the right thing to do.
Right.
And in this case, there are people suffering. There are people literally dying because of these policies, because of how unfair these policies have been to everybody. I'm not saying Dangote should not rise up from within us. Is Jack Ma not from China?
Of course.
The Alibaba guy. So China operates a hybrid economic model, right? Wherein, yes, there is the state infrastructure that takes care of everybody. Transportation, healthcare, housing. But there's room for you to become a Jack Ma. So why can't we operate that? Why must it be that only the few individuals or groups must have all the wealth and the rest of us are just downtrodden and we have no hope? You see, when you take away hope from an individual, you've killed that person. You know what I mean? So you cannot operate this kind of system. Why was Maduro taken? Maduro apparently had one of the most sophisticated security systems, right? The Venezuelan president. But apparently, U.S. Special Forces literally just walked in and took him out of there. How did that happen? It happened because you and your cronies are living in absolute opulence and wealth, right? In the face of people who are supposedly guarding you, yet they cannot feed themselves, they cannot take care of their families, and yet you think they won't sell out to peanut. What America is offering these people are peanuts. To them, it's nothing. But they will sell you out for that. So right now, if I was telling you, I'll be sleeping with one eye open, because if they could take Maduro...
who's next? Interesting. Let's also look at, you belong to a political party. Are they with you on these, or you're flying solo?
I haven't yet decided which party I'm with. I chose PRP.
But you have a team of political thinkers.
Yes. But again, ultimately, right, we have to make the decision. Remember, these parties are mere vehicles.
Right.
There is no party that has ideology. The only party that probably has an ideology is PRP, and even that one now is under threat to being deregistered.
Why is that?
Because they didn't win a seat in 2023. Right?
So it appears there are more fundamental problems to deal with. In the eye of the law, as far as the Nigerian political party system.
It doesn't get any more fundamental than them stealing me and you, our commonwealth, sharing it among themselves, and then creating the banditry, the insecurity, the mess that we're in today. Because so many people don't have what to do. Our industries are dead. Do you understand? So you are a direct result of where we are right now. So I'm not sure what turning a blind eye. I was asked yesterday, actually, that why is it that I'm incapable of turning away from things? Just walk away from certain things. Like you said, now this is an almost impossible task, right? I can't walk away from injustice. I can't see it and not, you know what I mean? And there are people that, like I said, literally dying because of these policies, because of the inhumane. In the Constitution is there. Government actions must be humane. Right. So what is humane about taking something that should have been subsidized, privatizing it, making the prices soar when actually we should be the other way around? Electricity should be subsidized. Agriculture should be subsidized. You understand? Look at farming, for example. Now, people under Buhari, the borders were closed. All right. So people had to adjust to that reality. Okay. Now, President Tinubu, in an feeble attempt, by the way, to try and win the masses over, he opened the borders, allowed food to come in. But what has that done inadvertently? The farmer that took the risk of entering his farm despite the banditry, that took the risk of entering his farm and farming despite the price fluctuations because of the closure of borders, right? Now you've opened the borders, you have made his own labor and his toiling worthless, right? You have taken the person that invested in buying that stock and storing it against a rainy day, you've made his investment worthless. You think you're going to get those votes? You understand? As in, there's no thinking behind this. Like you said, there's think tanks, Abi. There's no thinking. There's no thinking in that their tank, apparently.
Okay. We're taking a break shortly, but I'd like to ask you this. As it stands right now, can we blame all of this on INEC? Of course, there is the acts establishing or setting up INEC, for example. Of course, again, there's the ground norm, the Constitution. In 2022, we got the Electoral Act and things like that. Are we dealing with shortage of laws, or are we being confronted by an existential threat of obsolete laws?
Abuse of laws, abuse of power, that's what we're being confronted with. The laws are there, the laws exist. The problem is lack of enforcement of the laws, deliberately ignoring the laws in favor of what you want to do. The last time we were here, unfortunately, the link didn't show. So we were talking about the legality or lack thereof of these American strikes on our sovereign land. You know what I mean? It's an issue of, for example, we talked about procedure then, right? For that to happen, even though it seems that the Constitution is silent on foreign participation, but it is clear on domestic participation, right? So if the president wants to declare a state of an emergency in a state, for example, Rivers State, right, he needs to first seek the permission of the National Assembly, who are actually representatives of us, the people, before saying, well, I can enter this thing. In Rivers, it showed clearly that the executive was willing to put the cart before the horse. They went in and later went for the permission. Just the same way with America and this so-called partnership, right, which I don't believe for a second. There has been no, you and I, we discussed it, there has been no indication that there was executive going to the legislature for that permission and then that foreign action being taken. No, Trump just did that thing without the knowledge of the executive. The executive is just backpedaling to say, we were part of the discussion, you were not. We all woke up to see those bombs in Sokoto, just like Aso Rock and us all saw that thing together.
You talked about the PRP a while ago. At this point, I mean, if you wanted to be, say, organic with your thoughts and recommendations, I mean, with a big if that was possible, would you say we deregister the entire, all the political parties and start building from scratch?
I think we need to reorient ourselves as to what democracy is. Okay, so it doesn't matter how many parties we have, whether it's 2, whether it's 2,000. Okay,
so it's not so much about the number.
It's not the numbers. It's our understanding. Do you know Monopoly? The game Monopoly.
Right.
If you and I are playing Monopoly and you don't know the rules, you just enter and we're just playing, I will cheat you. I will do anyhow with you because you will land on Mayfair and I'll tell you it's Old Kent Road.
Right.
Do you understand? If we don't understand the system, then it can never work in our favor, okay? We did wholesale adoption of a system that doesn't work for us, that we don't understand.
American system?
Yeah, American, it's not even American, democracy in itself, okay?
So you're saying it's not working for us?
It's not working for us.
Why is that?
Because we're not seeing the dividends of it. What are the dividends of democracy? A better life, better standard of living, right? All the amenities that should come. I pay my taxes, therefore I should have my refuse taken in front of my house. I should have good roads to ply on. I should be able to take my family to hospitals, good schools, public schools, not private schools, public schools that have good teachers in them, just like our parents grew up in the FGCs and whatnot and have used, you understand? And they got good sound education in those institutions. I think I went to Adisu College was one of the first private schools in Nigeria, okay? Before the Atlantic Halls, before the what have you and all that. But before then, the FGCs were good schools, they were good institutions. You understand? I know many people that went to FGC Maiduguri that I can relate with intellectually and on par. They're intelligent people. Where are those schools today? You cannot. You have to go and pay exorbitant prices for. My daughter goes to El Amin, right? That's IBB school, I mean, technically. But I went to a PTA meeting, and the teacher, one of their teachers, was saying, if your children will not rise on bed. So she was trying to complain about students coming to school late. What kind of English is if your children will not rise on bed? And that's supposedly one of the top schools. Do you understand? So it's not, again, it's the substance. You asked me about the laws. The laws are there. They are perfect. They are fine. It's the individuals that make up the institutions. That's where we always get it wrong, because Nigerians will always be Nigerians. And once you fill those places with the Nigerians, the system is broken and it will never get us anywhere.
All right, let's break the conversation quickly at this point. When we return, we'll be looking at a few more issues. Now, INEC has a new leadership in place, and the election in 2027 is around the corner. What can Professor Josh Mukbito, himself being a bona fide lawyer whose practice has run for several decades, do to turn around an institution that has been beaten blue and black by Nigerians? All right, just let me ask you this real quick. Incidentally, Professor Mukbito is not the first, if you like, lawyer, senior lawyer for that matter, to have been appointed as chairman of INEC. We saw the first of them, all God rest his soul, late Justice Ifre Makbata, who, of course, himself a former Supreme Court judge. All right, people say, well, those were the embryonic days of the commission, but now we've come a long way. More than 2 decades down the line, we have a senior advocate of Nigeria there, himself a very frontline academic and all of that. And he has also, like you have done the last couple of minutes, talked about, expressed concerns about the laws as they have to do with INEC and all of that. For whatever it's worth, no matter how minimal it may be, do you see this like a curve for the better?
Well, it depends on how sincere he is. Like I said, everything boils down to how sincere the person is in charge. You know what I mean? A lot of people hail Buhari for being some kind of messiah. You know what I mean? And I remember when he was elected the second time, as in 2015, when he came in as a civilian president. If you were around Abuja at the time, there was a shift in everything. Traffic lights were being repaired. Everybody was expecting General Buhari to come back. You know what I mean? So once you have a leader, INEC chairman, attorney general, whatever it is, that is willing to make the changes that are... Look at Erufai, for example, right? As much as I want to blame or put privatization on his doorstep, outside of privatization, Erufai seems to be the kind of leader that we need. Somebody who says, I don't care who you are, this is what is right and this is what is supposed to be, and I will do it. Do you understand? I love that about Malam Nasir Erufai. You know what I mean? So we have to understand what we're doing. If you take the traditional system, for example, now, of governance, right? If you go into, let's say, my place in Porto School, if an ordinary man doesn't need to know anybody has an issue, he will first go to what they call Miangwa. If Miangwa cannot solve his problem, they go to Hakimi, and they follow the chain of command, the traditional, all the way to the emir. And that common man that doesn't know anybody can actually have his matter dispensed with like that through the traditional system, something that everybody understands. You understand? Why aren't we following that? Why must we have the slave mentality of following the Oyinbo model that, again, like I said, we don't understand? And like I told you earlier, if you don't understand the rules of monopoly, I'll do anyhow with you. That's exactly what the politicians are doing right now. The common man does not know the rules of this democracy. The politicians have made it that they are the ogas, whereas in reality, now them be the servants. That's why they call them public servants. Okay, so those few of us that can see it, Most of us want to turn a blind eye because we found our own little corner of safety, and we don't want to rock the boat.
Just so we can, I mean, if you like, add some flesh to this. You are already in the middle of paperwork to INEC and I think to the Attorney General. How's that coming, really?
Well, the Attorney General at least has responded. So our correspondence is now at least a back and forth. With INEC chairman, there's been silence from the commission. I just submitted a letter of demand now, final demand, saying, look, I want these parties deregistered.
Which are the parties?
PDP and APC. PDP was directly responsible for privatization,
right,
and the APC, in their continuation of the privatized policies, are also now aiding and abetting the crime that that PDP did. So the real violators are PDP, but APC are now aiders and abettors to the thing. So APC, I can discuss with you that you are not the real perpetrators of this crime, and if you are willing, the Nigerian people are also willing to sit down and say, okay, which one do we want to remain privatized? Which one do we want to come back? Do you understand? As Nigerians now, we want subsidy back, fuel subsidy. In fact, we don't even want just the fuel subsidy. We want electrical subsidy as well. There's no reason why we should be paying all these exorbitant prices and all of that because you people sold our major sectors of the economy. So 16.1c says the states shall manage and operate in all major sectors of the economy, right? So that's electricity, that's oil and gas. So because these things have been privatized, that's why you and I are now paying almost 1,000 something for petrol. That's why we're paying the kind of money that we're paying for electricity. Me, they've even cut off my electricity now for almost 6 months now. Why? Because you guys did a rollover. So the contract with, let's say, Buy Power ended. Abuja Electricity wanted to bring it back to them. Their rollover now malfunctioned or whatever. So my meter that was functioning fine under Buy Power now was not working. You are now telling me that I now have to pay for a new meter at 250,000.
For no fault of yours.
Thank you. I said, no, I'm not doing it. They came and cut off my lights. Again, you people, do you know who you are dealing with? Do you know you that should not even exist? You are now coming to cut off my lights. I don't have time for you yet, but when I do, AEDC should not even exist. It should still be NEPA. We should still be having NEPA as we are now.
So you want to roll back to where we were?
We want to go back to where we were, where every citizen has a say. Every citizen has a piece of the pie. We sold all these things, Abi. Where was the people's share? It was our own things you sold. Where was our own cut? There was nothing. Not even an explanation. Why? Because the vast majority want to be quiet? No. One person can talk, and now one person can speak loudly enough if more of us start to hear. That's why I said I haven't yet filed, because if I file, the Attorney General has the power to discontinue the case, Abi, le prosecute and all of that. So if you're really working for the president, then I'm not going to give you that opportunity. I'm going to put you on blast. I'm going to put you on the court of public opinion. You're going to have to defend to the Nigerian people that you actually serve why you, one, are not joining us to enforce INEC to deregister PDP and APC, and two, if you're not going to do that, explain to us why you even want to kill the case, because that means you're complicit with that president who has put you there, who is also on the chopping block to be removed by this case. So
this looks like a long drawn-out, if you like, legal battle, but again, it appears it's just getting started. We hope to bring you back here quite a number of times to continue to evaluate and see where we are with all of this. But we'd like to say in the meantime, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
To share these thoughts. I've been talking with Idris Waziri. He's a lawyer and executive director at the Fiscal and Civil Rights Enlightenment Foundation. On behalf of my team who has made these broadcasts possible, I'm Weagmofwebe. We appreciate you for your time. Our broadcast on Global Television now continues.